Yeah, I haven't read this book in a while, so figure I want to get on this stuff more in the near future. Now's a good time to do it as I'm here. Alright, we are on Chapter 9, Combat, Weary Travelers. So let's see how well I can read this book like this right now. I'm a little foggy, a little sleepy, but... Chapter 9, Combat. The clatter of a sword striking against a shield, the terrible rending sound as a monstrous claws tear through armor, a brilliant flash of light as a ball of flame blossoms from a wizard's spell, the sharp tang of blood in the air, cutting through the stench of vile monsters. Roars of fury, shouts of triumph, cries of pain. Combat in D&D can be chaotic, deadly, and thrilling. This chapter provides the rules you need for your characters and monsters to engage in combat. Whether it is a brief skirmish or an extended conflict in a dungeon or on a field of battle. Throughout this chapter, the rules address you, the player or dungeon master. Weird way to phrase that. Hung me up for a half second. The dungeon master controls all the monsters and non-player characters involved in combat, and each other player controls an adventurer. You can also mean the character or monster that you control. Okay. In order of oh, I see why it's phrasing like that. It's basically just explaining how the rules might apply in an instant, though. And how they're explained. Because, yeah, it would be good to make that clear, I guess, because you is pretty ambiguous as far as what this book is going to be telling people. So they want to make sure they know it's either the player or the DM, just given the context. You know, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's why it hung me up for a second, but I'm a smart man sometimes. The order of combat. A typical combat encounter is a clash between two sides, a flurry of weapon swings, feints, parries, footwork, and spell casting. The game organizes the chaos of... There we go. The game organizes the chaos of combat into a cycle of rounds and turns. A round represents about 6 seconds in the game world. During a round, each participant in a battle takes a turn. The order of turns is determined at the beginning of a combat encounter, when everyone rolls initiative. Once everyone has taken a turn, the fight continues the next round if neither side has defeated the other. Surprise! A band of adventurers sneaks up on a bandit camp, springing from the trees to attack them. A gelatinous cube glides down a dungeon passage. That phrasing is great. It just glides, unnoticed by the adventurers until the cube engulfs one of them. In these situations, one side of the battle gains surprise over the other. Okay. This is... Oh. Look at this quick. Oh, I gotta type one more thing. Alright, just had to type out a couple things. I think I'm good now. Make sure also this is... Yeah, it's good. Score. 4. Alright. Back up here. I think I got that taken care of. So now we're talking about surprise. The DM determines who might be surprised. If another side tries to be stealthy, they automatically notice each other. You wonder how loud. I also need to mute this. I just realized. This is going to create noise for you guys. I should also check, double check. Double check my voice compared to. My mouth looks decent. It could be also my wireless headphones. That's probably adding some latency. I'll have to figure that more out. It's been a while since I've done this. There's probably some stuff I'm missing about it. I'm also... My voice just sounds weird too, like I'm in a tin can. What might be causing that? Ooh, it could actually be this, right? Let's test it. I'm gonna test out. I got while I'm here. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Rich and creamy. This is with noise suppression on. This is with noise suppression off. I didn't notice a difference. No, I did. I'm gonna try turning noise suppression off. Let's turn that off for a bit. Testing 1 2 3. Sorry guys, this is some maintenance we're doing. It's pretty good. Good quality, more CPU usage. So let's try that. Turning it on now. Method RN noise. Good quality, more CPU usage. Does seem pretty good. We'll try that for a little bit, I guess. Okay, I'm back to this. Sorry about that. I also had some issues with my compressor when I was testing that out recently, so I didn't even know what to make of a lot of that. Oh, yeah. I was trying to use sidechain ducking, but I don't know if this is an Ubuntu thing and the plugins are just being wonky on that or what's going on, but it didn't seem like the sidechain ducking is actually reacting at all, so yeah. Alright, where are we at? The DM determines we're back on surprise. I'm sorry, very slow. Okay, I think we're back at it. The DM determines who might be surprised. If neither side tries to be stealthy, they automatically notice each other. Otherwise, the DM compares the dexterity stealth checks to anyone hiding with the passive wisdom perception score of each creature on the opposing side. Any character or monster that doesn't notice a threat is surprised at the start of the encounter. So this is combat step by step. I don't know. I'm guessing there's like a reason why they do blocks like this, I guess. Combat step by step. I don't know why they put it in the middle of like a section though, especially like in the middle of a sentence. It just seems weird. Like you could actually just put this right above surprise, right? Like and maybe this, I don't know. This seems weird. This is probably how most people make books, but I question people make books at this point. Let me do the combat step by step. We're gonna do that. Determine surprise. The DM determines whether anyone involved in the combat encounter is surprised. Establish positions. The DM decides where all the characters' monsters are located. Given the adventurer's marching order in there, stated positions in the room or a location. The DM figures out where the adversaries are, how far away, and in what direction. Roll initiative. Everyone involved in the combat encounters rolls initiative, determining the order of combatant turns. Combatants' turns. 4. Take turns. Each participant in the battle takes a turn in initiative order. Begin the next round. When everyone involved in the combat has a turn, the round ends. Repeat step 4 until the fighting stops. Okay, it doesn't notice a threat surprise at the start of the encounter. If you're surprised, you can't move or take an action on your first turn of the combat. You can't take a reaction until the turn ends. A member of a group can be surprised even if other members aren't. True. Makes sense. Yeah. Initiative. Initiative determines the order of turns during combat. When combat starts, every participant makes a dexterity check to determine their place in the initiative order. The DM makes one roll for an entire group of identical creatures, so each member of the group acts at the same time. Okay. The DM ranks the combatants in order from the one with the highest dexterity check total to the one with the lowest. This is the order, called the initiative order, in which they act during each round. The initiative order remains the same from round to round. If a tie occurs, the DM decides the order among the tied DM-controlled creatures. And the player decide the order among their tied characters. The DM can decide the order if the tie is between a monster and a player character. Optionally, DM can have the tied characters and monsters each roll a d20 to determine the order. Highest roll going first. Okay. A little straightforward. I should also respond quick. Yeah, just doing some technical networking stuff, I'll just say. Your turn. On your turn, you can move a distance up to your speed and take one action. You decide whether to move first or take your action first. Your speed, sometimes called your walking speed, is noticed on your character sheet. The most common actions you can take are described in the Actions in Combat section later in this chapter. Many class features and other abilities provide additional options for your action. The Movement and Position section later in this chapter gives the rules for your move. You can forego moving, taking an action, or doing anything at all on your turn. If you can't decide what to do on your turn, consider taking the dodge or ready action as described in the Actions in Combat. Okay. So a dodge is because I know I've used the ready one too recently. Dodge is like its own thing I'm not as familiar with, so. Various class features, spells, and other abilities let you take an additional action on your turn called a bonus action. The Cunning Action feature, for example, allows a rogue to take a bonus action. You can take a bonus action only when a special ability, spell, or other feature of the game states that you can do something as a bonus action. You otherwise don't have a bonus action to take. You can take only one bonus action on your turn, so you must choose which bonus action to use when you have more than one available. Okay. You choose when to take a bonus action during your turn unless the bonus action's timing is specified, and anything that deprives you of your ability to take actions also prevents you from taking a bonus action. Other activity on your turn. Your turn can include a variety of flourishes that require your action. Your turn can include a variety of flourishes that require neither your action nor your move. Flourishes. I'm not sure what that phrase is referring to. You can communicate however you are able through. Oh, okay. I think I get what they're saying. Make it however you're able through other brief utterances or gestures as you take your turn. You can also interact with one object or feature of the environment for free during either your move or your action. For example, you could open a door during your move as a stride toward a foe, or you could draw your weapon as part of the same action you use to attack. If you want to interact with a second object, you need to use your action. Some magic items and other special objects always require an action to use, as stated in their descriptions. The DM might require you to use an action for any of these activities when it needs special care or when it presents an unusual obstacle. For instance, the DM could reasonably expect you to use an action to open a stuck door or turn a crank to lower a drawbridge. Reactions. Certain special ability spells and situations allow you to take a special action called a reaction. A reaction is an instant response to a trigger of some kind, which can occur on your turn or someone else's. The opportunity attack described later in this chapter is the most common type of reaction. When you take a reaction, you can take another one until the start of your next turn. If the reaction interrupts another creature's turn, that creature can continue its turn right after the reaction. Also, let me turn this light over. Make sure. There we go. Movement and position. In combat, characters and monsters are in constant movement, often using movement and position to gain the upper hand. Okay, well, interacting with objects is right here, so I'm going to read this now. Interacting with objects around you. Here are a few examples of sorts of things you can do in tandem with your movement and action. Draw or sheath a sword. Open or close a door. Withdraw a potion from your backpack. Pick up a dropped axe. Take a bauble from a table. Remove a ring from your finger. Stuff some food in your mouth. Yeah, I mean, healing food, right? I'm just thinking about somebody in the middle of combat sitting at a inn table and they're like, I'm shrimp. It literally does nothing. He's just in there and he readies his fork with a where if any food gets near him. You know, that's his options. Plant a banner on the ground. Fish a few coins from your belt pouch. Drink all the ale in a flagon. How much is in a flagon? How quickly is... How... I feel like you need to have some kind of skill check for that, right? Just chug? What would the skill check be? That'd be like Constitution, right? What skill check would you have for chugging? I guess, yeah, it'd be a straight Constitution. Dexterity? Yeah. Yeah, you want to drink a whole flagon, guys, you're gonna have to do that Constitution roll. A straight Constitution. I guess you gotta have a proficiency in it somehow. I don't know what that'd be under. Pull a torch from a Dawn's. Take a book from a shelf you can reach. Extinguish a small flame. Don a mask. Hold the hood of your cloak up and over your head. Put your ear to a door. Pick a small stone. Turn a key in a lock. Tap the floor with a 10-foot pole. Hand an item to another character. Oh. On your turn, you can move a distance up to your speed. You can use as much and as little of your speed as you like in your turn, following the rules here. Your movement can include jumping, climbing, and swimming. The different modes of movement can be combined with walking, or they can constitute your entire move. However you're moving, you deduct the distance of each part of your move from your speed until it is used up until you are done moving. The special types of movement section in Chapter 8 gives you the particulars for jumping, climbing, and swimming. I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure I'm reading that. A lot of it's like halved or that particular motion or doubled or whatever. Breaking up your movement. You can break up your movement on your turn using some of your speed before and after your action. For example, you have a speed of 30 feet. You can move 10 feet, take your action, then move 20 feet. Moving between attacks. If you take an action that includes more than one weapon attack, you can break up your movement even further by moving between those attacks. For example, a fighter who can make 2 attacks with an extra attack feature and who has a speed of 25 could move 10 feet, make an attack, move 15 feet, and then attack again. Yeah, okay. Using different speeds. If you have more than one speed, such as your walking speed and flying speed, you can switch back and forth between your speeds during your move. Whenever you switch, subtract the distance you've already moved from the new speed. The result determines how much farther you can move. If the result is 0 or less, you can't use the new speed during the current movement. Subtract. For example, you have a speed of 30 and a flying speed of 60 because a wizard can cast fly spell on you. You could fly 20 feet, then walk 10 feet, then leap into the air, fly 30 feet more. Yeah, I guess. I don't know how I feel about that. Just because, I mean, I can see why they're doing it like this, but this is a little. It seems misleading as far as the 6 seconds of time go, because that. If you have a speed of 30 and a flying speed of 60 and you move 30 feet, technically you would already burn up your movement, right? Like, you would not be able to move fast enough on the ground, your time would be up. But you could then suddenly fly and move 30 more feet. I don't know. I guess I can see why they do it like that, but it feels like an oversight. An oversight. Wait, it's probably a simplification of it, but yeah. I'm not sure how I feel about that rule as a whole, especially because I've heard some janky stuff about flying and that, and I feel like it's a little bit, it's a kind of an oversight in general about the whole flying rules, like with dragons and other races. I just feel like that needs to be polished, man. You got like a billion different fighter types, but your flying's kind of neglected, man. Difficult terrain. Combat really takes place in bare rooms, or maybe there's a different chapter for that too, that offers other suggestions, particularly for dungeon masters. Combat rarely takes place in bare rooms or on featureless plains. This is about difficult terrain again, by the way. Boulder-strewn caverns, briar-choked forests, treacherous staircases. The setting of a typical fight contains difficult terrain. Every foot of movement in difficult terrain costs 1 extra foot. This rule is true even if multiple things in the space count as difficult terrain. Low furniture, rubble, undergrowth, steep stairs, snow, and shallow bogs are examples of difficult terrain. The space of another creature, whether hostile or not, also counts as difficult terrain. Oh, if you want to try to squeeze by someone, not only does it take, yeah, that makes sense. Not only does it take more movement to get past them, you also invoke attacks of opportunity. That makes sense. I also realized to make sure my whatchamacallit thing isn't. I'm gonna close out of this for now too. Making sure. Oh, you guys don't need to see that. Just turn off my nightlight. There we go. But it only count movement in difficult terrain costs 1 extra foot. So that would be, if you move all of your entire movement, that'd be 6. You would effectively lose 5 feet of movement in difficult terrain. Wait. I feel like it should be halved, right? No. Well, no, not necessarily. It's probably not like suggesting that you're. It's like. I don't need to worry about it. I'm trying to figure out what it actually means though, because I feel like there was already mention about how things like swimming and climbing take double in difficult terrain already took away double, maybe. It's weird that, I don't know. I'll have to talk to a DM about that. I'm a little confused on the specifics of what constitutes difficult terrain, swimming, climbing, and how different they are, because I feel like I'm missing something at the moment with that. There's something I got there. Just have to ask somebody. Being prone, combatants often find themselves lying on the ground, either because they are knocked down or because they throw themselves down. In the game, they are prone, a condition described in Appendix A. You can drop prone without using any of your speed. Standing up takes more effort. Doing so costs an amount of movement equal to half your speed. For example, if your speed is 30, you must spend 15 feet of movement to stand up. You can't stand up if you don't have enough movement left, or if your speed is 0. Okay. To move while prone, you must crawl or use magic such as teleportation. Every foot of movement while crawling costs 1 extra foot. Crawling 1 foot in difficult terrain therefore costs 3 feet of... Oh, is this... Wait. Every foot of movement in different it's double. It's double. That's literally what it's saying. Now I get it. For some reason, because I thought every 5 feet. No, it's just every foot is a 1-to-1. Crawling is a 1... Okay. My captions are horrible. My closed captions are horrible. Like, it says exceptions are horrible. My closed captions is... Yeah. Okay, so it's like... I think I'm getting this more now. Every foot movement while crawling costs 1 extra foot. Okay. Yeah, it's a simplification thing, too. I think that makes sense, too, while they're doing that. Why they're doing that, too. But yeah. I'm... Because I also feel like if you're... Like, the idea of crawling only being taking twice as long as opposed to running in sand. Yeah, it's a... I mean, I guess, yeah, it just... That's why they simplified it. I think that's why they simplified it. Otherwise, you're going to be racking your brain like sand is easier to run through than knee-deep water. Waist-high water is way harder to run through. Yeah. Let's simplify it. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. It's all come together now, especially because I realize it's not every 1 to 5 feet, and I was just being silly. So don't worry about that part, guys. Never mind. The difficult terrain, movement, crawling, prone. That makes sense. I'm on board now. Moving around other creatures. You can move through a non-hostile creature space. In contrast, you can move through a hostile creature space only if the creature is at least 2 sizes larger or smaller than you. Is at least 2 sizes larger or small. So if they're 1 size larger than you can't get, if they're 1 size smaller, you can't get by them. Okay. Remember that another creature's space is difficult terrain for you. Okay. Okay. Whether a creature is a friend or an enemy, you can't willingly end your move in a space. You leave a hostile creature's reach during your move. You provoke an attack of opportunity, as explained later in the chapter. Okay, I wonder if they'll mention that in the creature size thing, because the main thing I'm thinking about, if the creature's like 2 sizes larger than you, it also seems weird you can just get through their space like that. But I guess it's because very large creatures tend to occupy bigger space anyways. So I guess that would probably be why creatures that are really small occupy a very small amount of space, which would only be like 5 feet. So I think that's why they're doing it. I would assume, because most yeah. I think I get what they're saying. I am curious though, like moving through a creature is only 1 size smaller than you. Like, I wonder if that like suggests. I wonder how they're gonna approach that, because I feel like you would be able to just bum rush through a smaller creature like that if you have a good amount of strength, and you would have to have some kind of conflicting checks in there, I'm sure. Especially too if you're trying to bum rush a person that's larger than you. There's probably some checks in there anyways, but I'm curious how they'll address that if they do in this chapter. Okay, flying movement. Flying creatures enjoy many benefits of mobility, but they also deal with the danger of falling. Flying creature is knocked prone, has the speed reduced to 0, or is otherwise deprived of the ability to move. The creature falls, unless it has the ability to hover or is being held aloft by magic, such as the fly spell. I feel like there needs to be a little more of a dress with whole flying movement. That it's definitely, it feels like an afterthought in some of these things. I guess you don't have a lot of creatures that naturally fly, so that's why they're not going super in depth, so that would make sense. Creature size. Each creature takes up a different amount of space. The size categories table shows how much space a creature of a particular size controls in combat. Objects sometimes use the same size categories. Tiny, 2.5 by 2.5 feet. You could have 4 just little dudes, huh? Standing in small, medium, 5 by 5, 5 by 5, Large is 10 by 10. Huge is 15 by 15. Wait, the large is 10 by 10. And if you're medium, you cannot pass by a 10 by 10. Probably makes sense. Small creature is still 5 by 5. Medium creature is still 5 by 5. Large, yeah. I'm guessing the small creatures is 5 by 5 because it'd be really hard to adjust that. And I already feel like the small creatures, like halflings, are kind of really creepy. Like, you don't need characters that are only like 3 feet tall, man. Like, 4 feet I feel like is small enough. Whatever. Kind of weirdly creepy to me. So, maybe it's fine, but space. A creature's space in the area and feet that it effectively controls a common, not expression of its physical dimensions. A typical medium creature isn't 5 feet wide, for example, but it does control a space that is wide. It is control a space that wide. If a medium hobgoblin stands in a 5-foot wide doorway, that creature can't get through unless the hobgoblin lets them. Okay. Creature's space also reflects the area it needs to fight effectively. For that reason, there's a limit to the number of creatures that can surround another creature in combat. Assuming medium combatants, 8 creatures can fit in a 5 by 5 foot radius around another one. Because larger creatures take up more space, fewer of them can surround a creature. If four large creatures crowd around a medium or smaller one, there's a little room for anyone else. Yeah, it's fair. In contrast, as many as 20 medium-sized creatures can surround a gargantuan one. Okay. Okay, variant. Playing on a grid. If you play out combat using square grids and miniatures on the tokens, follow these rules. Squares. Each square in a grid represents 5 feet. Speed. Rather than moving foot by foot, move square by square on the grid. This means that you use that means that you use your speed in 5-foot segments. This is particularly easy if you translate your speed into squares by dividing the speed by 5. And moving foot by foot, move a square by. Yeah. For example, a speed of 30 translates to a speed of 6 squares. If you use a grid often, consider writing your speed in squares on the character sheet. Entering a square. Also, feel free to let me know if my audio is weird, guys. Just let me know. I got some crackles in the background, and I'm not sure how those are coming along. It seemed like it was fine when I was testing, but there's only so much I can tell in the moment. Once you start talking more organically and not just testing, it seems like it changes a lot. Something I'll probably have to go back to this anyways. Don't worry about it too much. To enter a square, you must have at least 1 square of movement left, even if the square is diagonally adjacent to the square you're in. The rule for diagonal movement sacrifices realism for the sake of smooth play. Yeah, that's what I kind of figured. The Dungeon Master's Guide provides guidance on using a more realistic approach. I mean, if I were to add a note to that, I would say 1.5, but that would just be me. Like, you move diagonals 1.5, and if you end your movement with like only 2.5 feet left, you round down basically if you don't have enough to make a whole 5-foot square. That would just be mine, just to be a simpler way to do it. But I'm curious what the Dungeon Master's Guide will be, which I'll probably want to read that at some point. If a square costs extra movement, as a square of difficult terrain does, you must have enough movement left to pay for entering. For example, you must have at least 2 squares of movement left to the enter of a square difficult terrain. Corners. Diagonal movement can't cross the corner of a wall, large tree, or other terrain feature that fills that space. Ranges. To determine the range on a grid between 2 things, whether creatures or objects, start counting squares from a square adjacent to one of them. To determine the range on a grid between two things, whether creatures or objects, start counting squares from a square adjacent to one of them and stop counting in the space of the other one. Count the shortest route. I have no idea what this is. Corners. Diagonal movement can't cross the corner of a wall. Yeah, okay, I get that part. Okay. Large tree or other terrain. Okay, yeah, like, yeah, okay, I get that part now. Like a pillar, you can't use diagonal move through the pillar, you have to go up one, right one. But yeah, I think that makes sense. To determine the range on a grid between two things, whether creatures or objects, the range on a grid between two things, whether creatures or objects, start counting squares from a square adjacent to one of them. Start counting squares from a square adjacent to one of them and stop counting in the space. Stop counting in the space of the other one. Count the to determine the range on a grid between two things, whether creatures, start counting squares from a square adjacent to one of them and stop counting in the space. Stop counting in the space of the... What is... I have no idea what this is telling me. Count by the... I have no idea what this is telling me. Determine the range on a grid between two things, whether a creature... Okay, let's say we're gonna have a creature, and okay, there's a creature. Okay, yeah, not a creature here, object here, creature here, object here. Start counting squares from a square to adjacent to one of them. Okay, so we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And stop counting in the space of the other one. 6. Count by the shortest route. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stop counting by the shortest route. No, I don't know what I'm guessing it's probably just telling me ranges. It's probably telling you something like you're using diagonal movement in there still, right? Range between two. I just do not understand what that's telling me. I'm just leave that. We'll pretend that part doesn't exist. I have no idea what that's saying. I'm guessing it's like long range stuff, but it just makes like no sense the way they phrase that. It just squeezing into a smaller space. A creature can squeeze through a space that is large enough for a creature one size smaller than it. Thus, a large creature can squeeze through a passage that's only 5 feet wide. While squeezing through a space, a creature must spend one extra. I don't like that either because small creatures and medium creatures are both 5 feet. Through a space, the creature must expend one extra foot there and has a disadvantage on all attack rolls and dexterity saving throws. Okay, attack rolls against the creature have advantage while it's in the smaller space. I don't like that either. Yeah, don't like that either. Because that basically suggests that a small creature moves to the same crawl space as a large creature, and they're effectively half the size of a medium creature. So I mean, technically they're the same size, but that's kind of my point. Because a lot of small creatures are like 3 feet tall and they weigh like 50 pounds. So it's like, yeah, it just feel weird. Actions in combat. When you take an action on your turn, you can take one of the actions presented here, an action you gain from the class or a special feature, or an action that you improvise. Many monsters have action options of their own on their stat blocks. When you describe an action not detailed elsewhere in the rules, the DM tells you whether that action is possible and what kind of roll you need to make, if any, to determine success or failure. Attack. The most common action to take in combat is the attack action. Whether you are swinging a sword, firing an arrow from a bow, or brawling with your fist. With this action, you make one melee range attack. See them making an attack section for the rules that govern attacks. Certain features, such as the extra attack feature, For the fighter, allow you to make more than one attack with this action. Cast a spell. Spellcasters such as wizards and clerics. Alright, spellcasters such as wizards. Wait, where was I? As well as many monsters have access to spells and can use them to great effect in combat. Each spell has a casting time, which specifies whether the caster must use an action, a reaction, minutes, or even hours to cast a spell. Casting a spell is therefore not necessarily an action. Most spells do have a casting time of one action, so a spellcaster often uses his or her action in combat to cast the spell. See Chapter 10 for the rules on spell casting. Okay. Okay. Dash. While you take the dash action, you gain extra movement for the current turn. This increase equals your speed after applying any modifiers. With a speed of 30 feet, for example, you can move to 60 feet on your turn if you dash. Any increase or decrease to your speed changes this additional movement by the same amount. If your speed of 30 feet is reduced 15, for instance, you can move up to 30 feet this turn if you dash. Disengage. If you take the disengage action, your movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks for the rest of the turn. Dodge. When you take the dodge action, you focus entirely on avoiding attacks. Till the start of your next turn, any attack roll made on you has disadvantage if you see the attacker, and you make dexterity saving throws with advantage. You lose this benefit if you are incapacitated, as explained in Appendix A, or if your speed drops to 0. Help. You can lend your aid to another creature in the completion task. When you take the help action, the creature you aid gains advantage on the next ability. Check if this check it. Next ability check, it makes the let's reset that. When you take the help action, the creature you aid gains advantage on the next ability check it makes to perform the task you're helping with, provided that it makes the check before and the start of your next turn. Alternatively, you can aid a friendly creature in attacking a creature within 5 feet of you. You feint, distract the target, or in some way team up to make your ally's attack more effective. If your ally attacks the target before your next turn, the first attack roll is made with advantage. That little flummy. Right here. Hide. I think we're at that part, right? When you take the hide action, you make a dexterity stealth check in an attempt to hide, following the rules in Chapter 7 for hiding. If you succeed, you gain certain benefits, as described in the Unseen Attackers and Targets section later in this chapter. Okay. Improvising attack. Your character can do things not covered by the actions in this chapter, such as breaking down doors, intimidating enemies, sensing weaknesses in magical defenses, or calling for a parley with a foe. The only limits to the actions you can attempt are your imagination and your character's ability scores. See the descriptions of ability scores in Chapter 7 for inspiration as you improvise. When you describe an action not detailed elsewhere in the rules, the DM tells you whether that action is possible and what kind of roll you need to make, if any, to determine success or failure. Ready. Sometimes you want to get the jump on a foe or wait for a particular circumstance before you act. To do so, you can take the ready action on your turn, which lets you act using the reaction before the start of your next turn. First, you decide what perceivable circumstance will trigger your reaction. Then you choose the action you will take in response to the target, or you choose to move up your speed in response to it. Examples include, if the cultist steps on the trapdoor, I'll pull the levers that it opens, and if the goblin steps next to me, I move away. When the trigger occurs, you can either take your reaction right after the trigger finishes or ignore the trigger. When you ready a spell, you cast it as normal, but hold its energy, which you release with your reaction when the trigger occurs. To be readied, a spell must have a casting time of 1 action, and holding on to the spell's magic requires concentration, explained in Chapter 10. If your concentration is broken, the spell dissipates without taking effect. For example, if you are concentrating on the web spell and ready magic missile, your web spell ends, and if you take damage before you release magic missile with your reaction, your concentration might be broken. Search. When you take search action, you devote your... Someone's talking to me. When you take the search action, you devote your attention to finding something. Depending on the nature of your search, the DM might have you make a wisdom perception check or an intelligence investigation check. Okay. That seems pretty self-explanatory. Use an object. You normally interact with an object while doing something else, such as when you draw a sword or draw a sword as part of an attack. When an object requires your action for its use, you take and use an object. Use an object. You normally interact with an object while doing something else, such as when you draw a sword as part of an attack. When an object requires your action for... Well, I gotta see which... Here be. Alright, see if I can actually read these words now. Where was I? Making an attack, use an object. Water. Yeah, these closed captions just don't work. Yeah, I said closed captions and it said Cole's Cash. And there it said closed captions and it said call the captions. I have to speak everything as though every letter is just as important as the letter that preceded it. Not as the elector. I did not hit a hard C in that letter. Yeah, it's a lost cause. Alright, no closed captions for this. Alright. You normally interact. Go back to use an object. Use an object. You normally interact with an object while doing something else, such as when you draw a sword as part of an attack. When an object requires your action or its use, you take the use an object action. Okay. This action is also useful when you want to interact with more than one object on your turn. When you draw a sword as part of an attack. When the object requires your action for its use, you take the use an object action. This action is also when you want to interact with... Wait, I'm confused. Can you do multiple use an object actions is what it's saying? You normally interact with an object while doing something else. Such as when you draw a sword as part of an attack. Okay, so use an object is to withdraw your sword. I did not realize that was a thing. Before I heard that, like, drawing a weapon was, like, an entire action. So apparently this is what this is probably something new than what I'm familiar with. What I was trying to say, like, use an object thing is kind of its own action you can utilize. If you do use an object and then you can take an extra action, and you can use your actual action to interact with two objects, I'm guessing. So, assuming I'm reading that right, making an attack. Whether you're striking with a melee weapon, firing a weapon at range, or making an attack roll as part of a spell, an attack has a simple structure. Choose a target. Pick the target within your attack's range, a creature, an object, or a location. Determine modifiers. The DM determines whether the target has cover and whether you have advantage or disadvantage against the target. In addition, spells, special abilities, and other effects can apply penalties or bonuses to your attack roll. Resolve the attack. You make an attack roll. On a hit, you roll damage. Unless the particular attack has rules that specify otherwise, some attacks cause special effects in addition to or instead of damage. Okay, if there's ever any question of whether something you're doing counts as an attack, the rule is simple. If you're making an attack roll, you're making an attack. Okay. Make attack rolls. When you make an attack, your attack roll determines whether the attack hits or misses. To make an attack roll, roll a d20 and add the appropriate modifiers. If the total of the roll plus modifiers equals or exceeds the target's AC class, the attack hits. The AC of a character is determined at a character creation, whereas the AC of a monster is in its stat block. Blah. I gotta try to use more diction, I guess, to get that closed caption. Looks so bad. Modifiers to the roll. When a character makes an attack roll, the two most common modifiers to the roll are an ability modifier to the character's proficiency bonus. I don't think that was right either. Yeah, it said R instead of, it said bar instead of R. Roll are an ability modifier. Roll out. Roll R. Roll R. 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 Our. R. It's so bad. It is so bad. I don't know how to pronounce R and our much more differently for this thing. It's... Oh, there we got it. Yeah, nail ball. GG. Okay, okay. Fair. Sorry, I'm getting all distracted with my closed captions now. Alright, where was I? Ugh. Some spells also require an attack roll. The ability modifier depends on the spell casting. I think I just read this right. God, I don't know where. This is probably, yeah, close enough. Yeah, I think we are at ability modifier. The ability modifier used for a melee weapon attack is strength, and the ability modifier used for a ranged weapon attack is dexterity. Weapons that have the finesse or thrown property break this rule. Some spells also require an attack roll. The ability modifier used for a spell attack depends on the spellcasting ability of the spellcaster, as explained in Chapter 10. Proficiency bonus. You add your proficiency bonus to your attack roll when you attack using a weapon with which you have proficiency, as well as when you attack with a spell. Okay. Rolling 1 or 20. Sometimes fate blesses or curses a combatant, causing the novice to hit and the veteran to miss. If the d20 roll for an attack is 20, the attack hits regardless of any modifiers or the target's AC. This is called a critical hit, which is explained later in this chapter. If the d20 roll for an attack is 1, the attack misses regardless of any modifiers to the target's AC. Unseen attackers and targets. Combatants often try to escape their foes, noticed by hiding, casting an invisibility spell, or lurking in darkness. When you attack a target that you can't see, you have disadvantage on the attack roll. This is true whether you're guessing the target's location or you're targeting a creature that can hear but not see. If the target is in the location you targeted, you automatically miss. Okay. But the DM typically just says that the attack missed, not whether you guessed the target's location correctly. When a creature can't see you, you have advantage on attack rolls against it. You are hidden, both unseen and unheard, you make an attack. When you make an attack, you give away your location when the attack hits or misses. What if you have like a silencer on your crossbow? Yeah. Big brain. I don't know how that would work. Ranged attacks. When you make a ranged attack, you fire a bow or a crossbow, hurl a hand axe, or otherwise send projectiles to strike a foe at a distance. When you make a ranged attack, you fire a bow. Okay, I got it. A monster might shoot spines from its tail. Many spells also involve making a ranged attack. Range. You can make ranged attacks only against targets within a specified range. If a ranged attack, such as one made with a spell, has a single range, you can't attack a target beyond this range. Some ranged attacks, such as those made with a longbow or shortbow, have 2 ranges. The smaller number is the normal range. The larger number is the long range. Your attack roll has disadvantage when your target is beyond the normal range, and you can't attack a target beyond the long range. Okay. Ranged attacks in close combat. Aiming a ranged attack is more difficult when a foe is next to you. When you make a ranged attack with a weapon, a spell, or some other means, you have disadvantage on the attack roll if you are within 5 feet of a hostile creature, or who can see you and who isn't incapacitated. Wait, when you make a ranged attack with a weapon, spell, or some other means, you have disadvantage on the attack roll if you're within 5 feet of a hostile creature who can see you and who isn't in... Oh, okay. Melee attacks. Used in hand-to-hand combat, a melee attack allows you to attack a foe with your reach. A melee attack typically uses a handheld weapon such as a sword, a warhammer, or an axe. A typical monster makes a melee attack when it strikes with its claws, horns, teeth, tentacles, or other body part. A few spells also involve making a melee attack. Most creatures have a 5-foot reach and can thus attack targets within 5 feet of them when making a melee attack. Within 5 feet, but not over 5 feet, probably. Certain creatures, typically those larger than medium, have melee attacks with a greater than 5 feet, as noted in their descriptions. Instead of using a weapon to make a melee weapon attack, you can use an unarmed strike, a punch, kick, headbutt, or similar torso blow, none of which count as weapons. On a hit, an unarmed strike deals bludgeoning damage equal to 1 plus your strength modifier. You are proficient with your unarmed strikes. Okay. Okay, that's fair. Everybody's just proficient with unarmed strikes. I don't know if a wizard would be. I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't think a wizard would be super proficient with their fisties all the time. And it seems like something you'd have to learn. Opportunity attacks. In a fight, everyone is constantly watching for a chance to strike an enemy who is fleeing or passing by. Such a strike is called an opportunity attack. You can make an opportunity attack when a hostile creature you can see moves out of your reach. To make an opportunity attack, use your reaction to make one melee attack against the provoking creature. The attack occurs right before the creature leaves your reach. Up here we have contest and combat. I don't know what this is related to. Battle often involves pitting your prowess against that of your foe, such as a challenge that is represented by a contest. This section includes the most common contests that require an action in combat, grappling and shoving a creature. The DM can use these contests as models for improvising others. Okay, so I think it's like yeah, that's in the next section. They just put it up here because they want to be confusing. You can avoid provoking an attack of opportunity by taking the disengage action. You also don't provoke an opportunity attack when you teleport or when someone or something moves you without using your movement, action, or reaction. There. Rain Man, hold up. You can avoid provoking an attack of opportunity attack by taking the disengage action. You also don't provoke an opportunity attack when you teleport or when someone or something moves you without using your movement, action, or reaction. For example, you don't provoke an attack of opportunity if an explosion hurls you out of a foe's reach, or if gravity causes you to fall past it. Yeah, and thank goodness I didn't invoke an attack of opportunity because of that explosion or falling off a building. Thank goodness. I'm glad we got there, Reddit. That is a strange cherry on top of that situation. Yeah. 2 weapon fighting. When you take an attack action and attack with a light melee weapon that you're holding in one hand, you can use a bonus action to attack with a different light melee weapon that you're holding in the other hand. You don't add the ability modifier to the damage of the bonus attack unless the modifier is negative. If either weapon has the thrown property, you can throw the weapon instead of making a melee attack with it. Okay. I'm going to just skim through this again just to make sure I'm understanding. When you take an attack action, attack with a light melee weapon you're holding in your hand, you can use the bonus action. So this is just... bonus action attack with a different light melee weapon they're holding in your other hand. Is this a feat you normally... Does everybody have... Do most melee characters have 2 weapon fighting? Is why this is a thing? I'm trying to figure that out a little bit. I'm guessing that's the thing, but... Yeah, the way it's phrased, I'm looking at it more like it's a given and not like a feat. But I'm guessing it's like a feat, or like a feature that certain classes have. Otherwise you would... bonus action. Yeah, this probably makes sense. This probably makes sense. Okay. Grappling. When you want to grab a creature or wrestle with it, you can use the attack action to make a special melee attack, a grapple. If you're able to make multiple attacks with the no, if you're able to make multiple attacks with the attack action, this attack replaces one of them. The target of your grapple must be no more than one size larger than you and must be within your reach. Using at least one free hand, you can try to seize the target by making a grapple check instead of an attack roll, a strength athletics check, contested by the target's strength athletics or dexterity acrobatics check. The target chooses the ability to use. You succeed automatically if the target is incapacitated. If you succeed, you subject the target to a grappled condition. See Appendix A. I don't know what this Appendix A is yet. Gotta find that at some point, I guess, because it's been mentioned a lot. The condition specifies that things that end it, and you can release the target whenever you like. No action required. Okay, so the grapple condition. Okay, so apparently I need to look at Appendix A to figure out what this grappling condition is. I'm guessing. Escaping a grapple. A grappled creature can use its action to escape. To do so, it must succeed a strength, athletics, or dexterity acrobatics checks contested by your strength athletics check. Moving a grappled creature. When you move, you can drag or carry a grappled creature with you, but your speed is halved unless the creature is 2 or more sizes smaller than you. Okay, that makes sense. Shoving a creature. Using the attack action, you can make a special melee attack to shove a creature, either to knock it prone or push it away from you. If you're able to make multiple attacks with the attack action, this attack replaces one of them. The target must be no more than one size larger than you and must be within your reach. Instead of making an attack roll, you make a strength athletics check, contested by the target's strength athletics or dexterity acrobatics check. The target chooses the ability to use. Oh, you succeed automatically if the target is incapacitated. If you succeed, you either knock the target prone or push it 5 feet away from you. Okay. Okay, I think that makes sense, right? Yeah. Yeah. I know I tried to use that with like Jambi's whole campaign thing, trying to be a clever boy. I know it worked. I managed to get away from him, so... Big brain plays. I got down shortly after that, but big brain, man. Cover. Walls, trees, creatures, and other obstacles can provide cover during combat, making a target more difficult to harm. A target can benefit from cover only when an attack or other effect originates on the opposite side of the cover. There are 3 degrees of cover. If a target is behind multiple sources of cover, only the most protective degree of cover applies. The degrees aren't added together. For example, if a target is behind a creature that gives half cover and a tree trunk that gives 3/4 cover, the target has 3/4 cover. I think that makes sense, yeah. A target with half cover has a +2 bonus to AC and dexterity saving throws. A target has half cover if an obstacle blocks at least half of its body. The obstacle might be a low wall, a large piece of furniture, or a narrow tree trunk, or a creature, whether that creature is an enemy or a friend. A target with 3/4 cover has a +5 bonus to AC and dexterity saving throws. A target has 3/4 cover if the about 3/4 of it is covered by an obstacle. Okay, I think that seems pretty self-explanatory, right? The obstacle might be a portcullis, an arrow slit, or a thick tree trunk. Portcullis. I saw that before, right? That's like the weird plotted rate things. Also, I finally see it. I think chat's trying to do stuff. Okay, chat is working. Hi, Dragon. Aye, too. My throat's dry. But yeah, I think that makes sense. I think I checked that before. That was like the whole graded gate, slabbed, the gate with the many slabs and the holes. I don't know how to describe it. A target with total cover can't be targeted directly by an attack or a spell, although some spells can reach such a target by including it in the area of effect. A target has total cover if it is completely concealed by an obstacle. Damage and healing. Injury and the risk of death are constant companions of those who explore the worlds of D&D, and the thrust of... Okay, so I should make sure to remember this stuff up here too. Total cover, you can't be attacked. Some spells can still do that. 3/4 cover, +5 bonus. Half cover, +2. I think half cover is like when you start actually getting bonuses, so... Okay, damage and healing. Injury and the risk of death is constant companions to the world of D&D. The thrust of a sword, a well-placed arrow, or a blast of flame from a fireball spell all have the potential to damage or even kill the hardiest of creatures. Hit points. Hit points represent a combination of physical and mental durability. The will to live and luck, Ethan. Mother Miranda, Ethan. Creatures with more hit points are more difficult to kill. Those fewer hit points are more fragile. Yeah, so it's mostly just hit points, a combination of physical, mental durability, will live and luck. Yeah, it's just your ability to, yeah. Which is why it's a little confusing at times how things should apply to it or not, but yeah. Yeah. Because you'd almost think, but with how they do charisma should affect hit points almost. Like when you have it like in characters like sorcerers and that, you would think that would actually affect it more than just constitution, just based on what they're saying. But that's just me though. I mean, I'm just the dude. A creature's current hit points, usually just called hit points. Okay, it's fair because you don't say max hit points, you just say hit points. Can be any number from the creature's hit point maximum, which is normally just called max hit points or hit point maximum, down to 0. Okay. This number changes frequently as creatures take damage or receive healing. Whenever a creature takes damage, the damage is subtracted from its hit points. Yeah, the loss of hit points has no effect on a creature's capabilities until the creature drops to 0 hit points. Damage rolls. Each weapon, spell, or harmful monster ability that's also something too that I kind of feel like could be expanded upon more with as far as current hit points. Because the way that's described is that if you drop to 0 hit points, you're like incapacitated. You're effectively, you can't talk or anything like that, which is kind of weird to me because you go from a state of I'm all cut up and beat up, but I'm working just like normal to just down, completely out, can't talk, can't move. You're not like holding in your innards. You're just down, completely knocked out. And that part to me is a bit bizarre because I would assume people at 0 hit points are people who are injured to the point they cannot function normally. Like they have taken they have a collapsed lung and they're like huddled up in the fetal position on their hands and on their one hand knee gripping their side. Like that to me would be what I would imagine 0 hit points, but apparently it is just they're just face first. That to me is why it's a little weird why it goes from like moving, you're either at 100 or 0, is you're moving at 100% or 0, I guess, in regards to hit points. So I would normally actually take the approach of if a character's at 0, they might be conscious but not, you know, they're not going to be with it, obviously. Like they're like bleeding out or something, so they're in shock or something like that. So I don't like the idea of just 0 hit points. It's, oh, you're knocked out. Yep, like a Dean Winchester. Winchester's always at 0 hit points, man. They just pop back up with 1 hit point and they get knocked out again. I think they have brain damage, you know, but damage rolls. Each weapon, spell, and harmful monster ability specifies the damage it deals. You roll the damage die or dice, and add any modifiers and apply the damage to your target. Magic, weapons, special abilities, and other factors can grant a bonus to damage. With a penalty, it is possible to deal 0 damage, but never negative damage. Okay. Yeah, it seems like pretty standard stuff that I'm probably pretty well familiar with. When attacking with a weapon, you add the ability modifier, the same modifier used for the attack roll, to the damage. A spell tells you which dice to roll for damage, and whether to add any modifiers. If a spell or other effect deals damage to more than one target at the same time, roll the damage once for all of them. Excuse me. For example, when a wizard casts Fireball or a cleric casts Flame Strike, the spell's damage is rolled once for all creatures caught in the blast. Critical hits. When you score a critical hit, you get to roll an extra dice for the attack's damage against the target. Roll all of the attack's damage twice and add them together. Okay, so that's what a critical hit is supposed to be. Where was I? Then add any relevant modifiers as normal. To speed up play, you can roll all the damage dice at once. For example, if you score a critical hit with a dagger, roll 2d4 for the damage rather than 1d4, and then add your relevant ability modifier. If the attack involves other damage dice, such as from the rogue sneak attack feature, you roll those dice twice as well. Oh, okay. Dang, that's kind of messed up, man. Kind of messed up. Damage types. Different attacks, damaging spells, and other harmful effects deal different types of damage. Damage types have no rules of their own, but other rules, such as damage resistance, rely on the types. The damage types follow with examples to help a DM assign a damage type to a new effect. Acid, the corrosive spray of a black dragon's breath, and the dissolving enzymes secreted by a black pudding deal acid by a black pudding. What is this? Somebody doesn't like black pudding, which, I mean, I don't like black licorice, but I ain't gonna pretend it's acid. I'm gonna pretend it's poison, just a little nasty, but like it's not gonna kill me, probably. Probably a monster or a poisonous object. Black pudding is just a weird choice. Bludgeoning, blunt force attacks, hammers, falling, constriction, and the like deal bludgeoning damage. Cold, the infernal chill radiating from an ice devil spear and the frigid blast of a white dragon's breath deal cold damage. Couldn't you have said like blizzard, snow? I don't know. Like, seems like it would just be a little more simple. Like, you're using black pudding for acid and you're using dragons and devils for cold. I don't know, man. It's a little confused. It's not actually super helpful. Fire, red dragon's breath fire, and many spells conjure. Just many spells? You can't mention fireball? Magic missile doesn't do that. Force is pure magical energy focused into a damaging form. Most effects that deal force damage are spells, including magic missile and spiritual weapon. Yeah, that makes sense. Lightning. A lightning bolt spell and a blue dragon's... What is with this dragon stuff? Blue dragon's breath deal lightning damage. I get it's all Dungeons and Dragons, but like, I don't remember the last time we talked about dragons in this game. You know, it's not helpful. It's like... maybe it's just me. Necrotic. Necrotic damage dealt by a certain undead and a spell such as Chill Touch. Withers matter and even the soul. Chill Touch. I thought that would have been like cold. That actually doesn't explain to me at all what necrotic would actually... what that would actually be a representation of. Chill Touch. I guess I would have to read the Chill Touch spell. Maybe that's like the parts of your body die and then you'll suddenly feel cold, like, and you get necrosis, which would make sense, but that's also just a weird way to... That's a very specific spell to pick that would suggest it's cold, so it's just more confusing to me. So, piercing. Puncturing and impaling attacks, including spears and monster bites, deal piercing damage. Like, that makes sense. I have a general idea what a spear is. Apparently Chill Touch is necrotic, not cold. It's confusing, I'm just saying. Poison. Venomous stings and toxic gas of a green dragon's breath deal... God, you and your freaking dragons. You and your freaking dragons. Get your dragons out of here. It's not a one-to-one relation. Only if you've read every book before, I guess. But it's not a good... Stop talking about... I like dragon and all. Everyone say hi to dragon. But, like, come on. It's not helpful. There's like other things in life that you might consider poisonous, you know? I don't know. Psychic. Mental abilities such as a mind flayer's psionic blast deals psychic energy. I don't actually know what that is either. Well, they are in the name after all. I know, but like, doesn't tell. How you doing, Grim? Doesn't tell me anything. It just there's also dungeons in here. I mean, is it gonna explain that radiant is the attack of a bright dungeon? Probably not it. I'm just getting grumpy because I can't really relate these to anything. Radiant damage dealt by a cleric's flame strike. Oh, that's interesting. So flame is radiant. Flame is radiant, but dragons are fire. Okay. Or an angel smiting weapon. That makes a little more sense. Okay. Spears the flesh like fire and overloads the spirit with power. That would probably be like how you look at an angel and it's so bright it just burns your face off, I'm guessing. Which is kind of like fire, but it's extreme fire. It's probably like radiation, actually, from the looks of it. That would be the best relation I have right now, is it's just radiation. Which also is psychic. Psionic blast. What is psionic? I gotta look this up. I'm actually gonna look that up to see if that'll help give me an idea. A lot of these things it's giving me are like, I don't know what if it's not a dragon, I don't know what other creature used it at this point, unfortunately. Psionic definition of or relating to psionics. Psionics definitions. Science fiction, mental powers that affect physical matter, such as telekinesis. Okay. So it affects physical matter. So psychic would best be. Okay, so I was under the assumption that psychic would be more like. Well, here, let's look up psychic quick. Hold. My impression of psychic was to alter the mental state, but apparently it's a mental state that alters physical and mental state. Person apparently responsive to psychic forces. Of or relating to the psyche. Psyche definition. Soul, personality. The totality of elements forming the mind. Okay. Psychic. Lying outside the sphere of physical science or knowledge. Immaterial, moral, or spiritual in origin or force. Sensitive to non-physical or supernatural force and influence. Marked by extraordinary or mysterious sensitivity, perception, or... Okay, so that makes... It is effectively invisible powers. I guess one way to describe it would be it's more like atomic level abilities. Like atoms, electrons, protons, all that. It's like the manipulation of that on a very would be the way I would look at it, at least. It was on a microscopic atomic level. Subatomic level you can alter things. And radiant is radiation. Angels use radiation. Yeah, necrotic is like killing cells, is what I would say. Like just cell death. Which, yeah, that checks out. Cold is very cold. Fire is burning. Force, though. Force is pure energy, I guess would be the better way to look at it. Whereas like fire is hot and cold is cold. Force is just... What is force? That wouldn't be holy, because radiant is holy. It's pure magical energy into a damaging form. Like lasers? Is force just lasers? So when they're talking about a magic missile and a spiritual weapon, that spiritual weapon, what they're talking about, that's a lightsaber, just lasers. I think I think that's the only thing that makes sense, right? Because radiant otherwise is too. Yeah, magical energy focus into a damaging form. I might have to look that up more. I don't think I quite understand what force magic would be, or force damage would be besides lasers. Just because there is some overlap in general, it's hard to kind of parse through that very well. So yeah. So anyways, we're on slashing. Swords, axes, and monsters' claws deal slashing damage. Thunder, a concussive burst of sound such as the effect of a thunder wave spell, deals thunder damage. Yeah, thunder is different than lightning, but that also makes sense. It's like an impactful explosion, but without the fire, which can be very jarring for people. You know, you don't need fire to hurt someone from an explosion. Damage resistance and vulnerability. So the one there that I think I'm still confused on would be force, because it doesn't really fit into anything I can relate it to. And I didn't even put like a dragon next to it either, so who knows? It's just magic missile and spiritual weapon. Yeah. Damage resistance and vulnerability. Some creatures and objects are exceedingly difficult or unusually easy to hurt with certain types of damage. If a creature or an object has resistance to a damage type, damage of that type is halved against it. If a creature or an object has vulnerability to a damage type, damage of that type is doubled against it. Resistance and invulnerability are applied after all other modifiers to damage. For example, a creature has resistance to bludgeoning damage and is hit by an attack that deals 25 bludgeoning damage. The creature is also within a magical aura that reduces all damage by 5. The 25 damage is first reduced by 5 and then halved, so the creature takes 10 damage. Multiple instances of resistance or vulnerability that affect the same damage type count only as only one instance. For example, if a creature has resistance to fire damage, as well as resistance to all non-magical damage, the damage of non-magical fire is reduced by half against the creature, not reduced by 3/4. Okay. Healing. Unless it results in death, damage isn't permanent. Even death is reversible through powerful magic. Rest can restore a creature's hit points, as explained in Chapter 8, and magical methods such as Cure Wounds spell or a potion of healing can remove damage in an instant. When a creature receives healing of any kind, hit points regained are added to its current hit points. A creature's hit points can't exceed its hit point maximum, so any hit points regained in excess to this number are lost. For example, a druid grants a ranger 8 hit points of hit point maximum of 20 and has a hit point maximum of 20. The ranger regains 6 hit points. Okay, so hold up. I gotta try to review this a little bit. When a creature receives healing of any kind, hit points regained are added to its current hit points. A creature's hit points can't exceed its hit point maximum, so any hit points regained in excess of this number are lost. For example, a druid grants a ranger 8 hit points of healing if the ranger has 14 hit. Okay, I was interpreting that wrong. So it's a good thing I reread that. That's pretty simple. Never mind. Very confused what I was reading at first. Hydrate, good idea. I just did, but a creature that has died can't regain hit points until magic such as a Revivify spell has restored it to life. Okay. Ooh. Dropping to 0 hit points. When you drop to 0 hit points, you either die outright or fall unconscious, as explained in the following sections. See, that's the part I don't like. Don't like that part. It's like you're like, oh yeah, I'm good to go. I'm doing super great. I'm at 1 hit point, can perform just as well. And then someone slaps you in the face so hard, you just fall over, unconscious. Someone punches you in the knee, you're like, "Ah, I'm going into shock," and you pass out. Weird. I don't like that. I don't like the fact that you go from 0 to 100 or 100 to 0. Just flipping a switch. Yeah, it's a silly game. I'm not saying you should be like up at 0 hit points, but I feel like there should be some level of consciousness, even if you're in shock or whatever. Instant death. Massive damage can kill you instantly. When damage reduces your 0 hit points and there is damage remaining, you die if the remaining damage equals or exceeds your hit point maximum. For example, a cleric with a maximum of 12 hit points currently has 6 hit points. If she takes 18 damage from an attack, she is reduced to 0 hit points, but 12 damage remains. Because the remaining damage equals her hit point maximum, the cleric dies. Falling unconscious. If damage reduces you to 0 hit points and fails to kill you, you fall unconscious. See Appendix A. I still know what this Appendix A is. I really gotta look at it, apparently. I feel like I should be reading Appendix A before all this stuff at this point, but what is this Appendix A it keeps referencing? Are you Appendix A? Oh, preface, introduction. Let's see if this. Where's Appendix A is in page 290 is our Appendix A. Okay, I gotta look at this. Because it keeps referencing it, and I feel like I'm missing stuff that's telling me I should know. 290. Because I actually felt like I was missing like an important bit of information that was in Appendix A. Appendix A, conditions. Ah. They kept calling it Appendix A. I had no idea why they kept calling it that. Appendix B, Gods of the Multiverse. Jeepers. I was so confused what Appendix A was. It's just conditions. Okay. That makes so much more sense. What you do is you checked out your appendix. Gotta get your appendix checked. If damage reduces you to 0 hit points and fails to kill you, fall unconscious. See Appendix A. And we're going to Appendix A. Unconscious. Invisible, petrified, deafened, frightened, poisoned, restrained, stunned, unconscious. An unconscious creature is incapacitated. See condition. Incapacitated. An incapacitated creature can't take actions or reactions. Fair. Can't move or speak and is unaware of its surroundings. Okay, so you're... Yep. The creature drops whatever it's holding and falls prone. Okay. The creature automatically fails strength and dexterity saving throws. Alright. I do know some DMs can make home rules for death saves, and you can consider as if you went into shock when they take all their hit points in one go. I do think some people do as more than double your hit points, or else you're just making death saving rolls. Oh, I do think some people do as more than double your hit points, or else you're... Okay, I think I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely don't like the idea that, yeah, you're unconscious, you don't say anything, because it feels like very disconnected from reality. Do it as more than double your... Yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah, it feels so disconnected from reality and not even for the purpose of simplicity. Because, like, I feel like you should have some level of, like... Because, like, you can still, you know, maybe move or speak, I would say. Maybe, depending, I have to figure that out. But you can still be unaware of your surroundings, right? You're not going to react to anything properly if you're going into shock, so... They encourage you... Yeah. Because, like, otherwise it just feels so disconnected, and I mean, maybe if you were, like... Because I guess it also says to unconscious. Attack rolls against the... So, wait. So they don't actually have a state agnostic from falling unconscious and performing death saving throws. Like, you would have to actually make your own state for that. Okay, so like they don't even have they don't have a state separate from unconscious and dying, basically. Hmm. Classic creature is incapacitated. See condition. Can't move or speak. Any attack that hits the creature is a critical hit if the attacker is within 5 feet of the creature. Yeah, there is no dying state. It's just unconscious is what it's listed as. Which is also a little weird. Yeah, so they stay at 0 after. It's usually just a stabilized person. I spelled it wrong. So they stay at 0 after 2 successful saves. Yeah, yeah. No, I get what you're saying there. It's just weird. They don't actually have unconscious separate from. Yeah, that is very weird to me. Because you could technically be unconscious for different reasons too, right? Like it's not just death, but I don't even think they have an unconscious state. Like I guess there's sleeping, right? You can be sleeping, paralyzed, deaf, right? Prone, restrained, poisoned, stunned. There is no sleeping. Yeah, if you're sleeping and you get attacked, you're technically at 0, so rip you. Man, you shouldn't have. I mean, it's fair, but like, it's fair. I guess you're technically at 0 hit points if you're sleeping. You get attacked, right? I don't know. You're prone. Ah, prone. All right, let's get prone here. Go prone here, right? Prone. A prone creature's only movement is to crawl unless it stands up and thereby ends the condition. The creature has disadvantage on attack rolls. An attack roll against the creature has advantage if the attacker is within 5 feet of the creature. Otherwise, the attack roll has disadvantage. And what's incapacitated again? Can't take actions or reactions. You know, you could theoretically have it that, you know, if you fall unconscious or if you get dropped down to 0, you are technically in a prone incapacitated state, which means you can crawl, you can't take actions or reactions, which means you can't attack. I guess incapacitated is technically unconscious, just not dying. Still a thing if I, but I would assume you're also more susceptible to something like a coup d'etat, coup de grace, coup d'etat, coup de gracie. Oh man, coup de grace is my favorite from 3E, you know. So I guess is it incapacitated is such a small blurb. You just can't take actions or reactions. Doesn't say anything about movement either, which is technically not the same. Coup de grace, yeah, coup de gracie. Hey, you want to take your coup de gracie action? I highly recommend taking your coup de gracie action. Yeah, I feel like it would be an attack roll against a creature has advantage if the attacker is within. Yeah, I feel like I'd rather just make them like my version of 0 hit points would just be you're at prone and incapacitated and you're crawling. Yeah, I like it. I like something like that more, but that's just me. I'll worry about more later though, but yeah. All right, let's get back to not Appendix A. Describing the effects of damage. Dungeon masters describe hit point loss in different ways. When your current hit point total is half of more of your hit point maximum, you typically show no signs of injury. When you drop below half your hit point maximum, you show signs of wear, such as cuts and bruises. That also makes sense because a lot of like damage would be considered just being worn out, being exhausted to the point that you're can't keep up as well for a lot of different characters who have like Because I guess that is what Constitution is more, your stamina, your ability to, you know, keep in the fray. And it's not just how big and strong you are. An attack that reduces you to 0 hit points strikes you directly. Leaving a bleeding injury or other trauma, or simply knocks you unconscious. Leaving a bleeding injury or other trauma, or knocks you unconscious, not end knocks you unconscious. I don't know what that means. Oh. Death saving throws. Whenever you start your turn with 0 hit points, you must make a special saving throw, called a death saving throw, to determine whether you creep closer to death or hang on to life. Unlike your other saving throws, this one isn't tied to an ability score. You are in the hands of fate now, aided only by spells and features that improve your chances of succeeding on a saving throw. Roll a d20. If the roll is 10 or higher, you succeed. Otherwise, you fail. A success or failure has no effect by itself. On your third success, you become stable. See below. On the third failure, you die. The successes and failures don't need to be consecutive. Keep track of both until you collect 3 of a... Oh man, here's a big number 3. Let's go. The successes and failures don't mean... Yeah, the number of both is reset to 0 when you regain any hit points or become stable. Technically, 1 is reset to 0. 1 is... winner, chicken dinner is what I say. And that's my 2 cents. And then it's reset. Okay? Rolling a 1 or 20. When you make a death saving throw and roll a 1 on a d20, it counts as 2 failures. If you roll a 20 on a d20, you regain 1 hit point. Ah, okay. Yeah, you get back up. So, okay, so if you roll a 20, okay. That's still weird. I'll allow it, but that's still weird. Damage has 0 hit points. If you take any damage while you have 0 hit points, you suffer a death saving throw failure. If the damage is from a critical hit, you suffer 2 failures instead. If the damage equals or exceeds your hit point maximum, you suffer instant death. Yeah. Stabilizing your creature. The best way to save a creature at 0 hit points is to heal it. If healing is unavailable, the creature can at least be stabilized, so that it isn't killed by a failed death saving throw. You can use your action to administer first aid to an unconscious creature and attempt to stabilize it, which requires a successful DC 10 Wisdom Medicine check. A stable creature doesn't make death saving throws, even though it has 0 hit points, but it does remain unconscious. The creature stops being stable. It must start making death saving throws again if it takes any damage. A stable creature that isn't healed regains 1 point after 1d4 hours. That isn't... Okay, so they like to be unconscious for a certain amount of... Or... unconscious, incapacitated, sleeping prone for 1d4 hours. I'm gonna mock these dang dudes at this point. That's just silly. Not even a sleeping condition. Come on, man. Come on. Monsters and death. Most DMs have a monster die the instant it drops to 0 hit points, rather than having it fall unconscious and make death saving throws. Mighty villains and special non-player characters are common exceptions. The DM might have them fall unconscious and follow the same rules as player characters. Knocking a creature out. Sometimes an attacker wants to incapacitate a foe, rather than deal a killing blow. When an attacker reduces the creature's 0 hit points with a melee attack, the attacker can knock the creature out. The attacker can make this choice the instant the damage is dealt. The creature falls unconscious and is stable. Temporary hit points. Some spells and special abilities confer temporary hit points to a creature. Temporary hit points aren't actual hit points. They are a buffer against that. Okay, my brain health. I gotta reset the brain there. Knocking a creature out. Sometimes an attacker wants to incapacitate. Wait. Oh, I'm on temporary hit points. Some spells and special abilities confer. Right? Am I losing my mind? Probably. Some spells and special abilities confer temporary hit points to a creature. Temporary hit points aren't actual hit points. They are buffer against damage, a pool of hit points that protect you from injury. When you have temporary hit points and take damage, the temporary hit points are lost first, and any leftover damage carries over to your normal hit points. For example, if you have 5 temporary hit points and take 7 damage, you lose the temporary hit points and then take 2 damage. Math. Because temporary hit points are separate from your actual hit points, they can exceed your hit point maximum. A character can, therefore, be at full hit points and recover temporary hit points, and receive temporary hit points. Healing can't restore temporary hit points, and they can't be added together. If you have temporary hit points and receive more of them, you decide whether to keep... Healing can't restore... You have temporary hit points and receive more of them, you decide whether to keep the ones you have or gain the new ones. For example, as if a spell grants you 12 temporary hit points when you already have 10, you can have 12 or 10, not 22. Man, that feels bad, man. You have 0 hit points. Receiving temporary hit points doesn't restore you to consciousness or stabilize you. No, it should. I hard disagree with that one. I know it. I get that it doesn't, but that's a hard disagree from here. Maybe you can still absorb damage directed at you while you're in that state, but only true healing can save you. I guess, but I feel like I have a little thing there where temporary hit points will allow you to perform actions, but you still have to make death saving throws. I guess it depends too what are temporary hit points, because unless a feature that grants you temporary hit points has a duration, they last until they're depleted or you finish a long rest. Yeah, because I guess it depends on the type of temporary hit points, but I feel like that could be a thing. Oh yeah, that's just me. Mounted combat. A knight charging into battle on a warhorse, a wizard casting spells from the back of a griffin, or a cleric soaring through the sky on a pegasus all enjoy the benefits of speed and mobility that a mount can provide. A willing creature that is at least one size larger than you and has the appropriate anatomy to serve as a mount using the following rules. Mounting and dismounting. Once during your move, you can mount a creature that is within 5 feet of your dismount. Doing so costs an amount of movement equal to half your speed. For example, if your speed is 30, you must spend 15 feet of movement to mount a horse. Therefore, you can't mount it if you don't have 15 feet of movement left or your speed is 0. Just straight half. That's a little weird to me. Because that means like a creature that has 60, a character has 60 movement automatically expends 30 feet of movement to get on a horse. That's a little weird. I feel like it could just be a straight 15, right? I guess if you a straight 15 unless it exceeds your max movement, I guess, but it is at most 15 feet unless your movement is 10. I guess yeah, because your movement is reduced to. When would your movement be reduced to 10? I feel like you're gonna have trouble getting on a horse if your movement is reduced that much. Yeah, I feel like a straight 15 would make more sense. I don't know. If an effect moves your mount against its will while you're on it, you must succeed a DC 10 dexterity saving throw to fall off the mount, landing prone in the space within 5 feet of it. If you're knocked prone while mounted, you must make the same saving throw. If your mount is knocked prone, you can use your reaction to dismount it as it falls and land on your feet. Otherwise, you are dismounted and fall prone in a space within 5 feet. Yeah, I think straight 15 would make more sense. I don't see the point of like basing on half your movement speed. Yeah, I kind of don't. Maybe there is. Maybe some expert DM gamer can let me know. Controlling a mount. While you're mounted, you have 2 options. You can either control the mount or allow it to act independently. Intelligent creatures such as dragons act independently. You can control a mount only if it has been trained to accept a rider. Domesticated horses, donkeys, and similar creatures are assumed to have such training. What about a big guy with broad shoulders? I want to have Goliath as a mount. The initiative of a controlled mount changes to match yours when you mount it. It moves as you direct it, and it has only 3 action options: dash, disengage, and dodge. The 3 Ds. Dash, disengage, and dodge. A controlled mount can move and act even on the turn that you mount it. An independent mount retains its place in the initiative order. Bearing a rider puts no restrictions on the actions the mount can take, and it moves and acts as it wishes. It might flee from combat, rush to attack, and devour a badly injured foe, or otherwise act against your wishes. Strangely specific. I was thinking about horses, they're thinking about something else. Hey, go Epona, go! And Epona just starts eating the halfling. He's like, Epona, what the frick? What the frick, Epona? Stop! In either case, if the mount provokes an attack of opportunity while you're on it, the attacker must target you or the mount. Epona's messed up, man. Don't mess with Epona. Get up and move. I'm already up, gamers. Alright, we'll take a little break in a moment. Whew, underwater comment. When adventurers pursue Sehuagan back to their undersea homes, Sehuagan. Kind of wish they go back to dragons for the morning. Hold on, what is that Sehuagan? It's like a fish thing, right? Sehuagan. Yeah, sorry about that. That's my microphone. Mic magnet. Sehuagan. Medium humanoid. Sehuagan. Lawful evil. Way to generalize. I bet there's some neutral good boils down there. That's racist. That's racist, DnD Beyond. I'm watching you. Pick me, DnD Beyond. You know where the good boys are. Okay, when adventurers pursue Fish Boy back to their undersea homes, fight off sharks in an ancient shipwreck, or find themselves in a flooded dungeon room, they must fight in a challenging environment. Underwater, the following rules apply. When making a melee weapon attack, a creature that doesn't have a swimming speed, either natural or granted by magic, has disadvantage on the attack roll unless the weapon is a dagger, javelin, short sword, spear, or trident. Is it basically suggesting... Yeah. It's basically suggesting piercing melee weapons. Which I think it could have just left it as piercing melee, right? Unless there's a... It's very specific about it, and it's a little weird to me, but it probably makes sense. But I feel like just piercing melee weapons would make the most sense, right? The whole point. A ranged weapon attack automatically misses a target beyond the weapon's normal range, even against a target within normal range. The attack roll has a disadvantage unless the weapon is a crossbow, a net, or a weapon that is thrown like a javelin, including a spear, trident, or dart. So there's like spear, trident, or dart. So you can use a dart still underwater. Yeah, creatures and objects that are fully immersed in water have resistance to fire damage. Nice! Score! And that's the end of that chapter, so I'm gonna get up. We are next going on to Part 3, The Rules of Magic. Chapter 10, Spellcasting. For next time. For now, I'm probably gonna load something else up.